Resident Evil 4 is goated again. Typically, you don't get video game remakes that even hold a candle to the original. Sure, there are graphical upgrades, but like in terms of content, there's usually something missing that the original had. You can even see that within this series of remakes for Resident Evil 1 through 3. With 4, however, just about every important thing was here, and a lot of the fat was trimmed off of the story in order to make it more cohesive and entertaining. But if I'm being honest, I do wish they kept just a little bit more from the original. Not a lot, maybe just like 5% more. The 2005 version had a lot more over-the-top set pieces, quick-time events, and dialogue. But the one thing I wish they kept was the absurdity of the combat. I wish that a lot more of Leon's moveset had transferred over to the remake, just so that there's more than a spinning kick and a suplex.
Long live the suplex.
Because he's Leon S. fucking Kennedy, the GOAT. I don't care who your favorite is, if it isn't Leon, it's wrong. Just behold the skill.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the remake! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for this, but I actually didn't mind the QuickTime events in the original so much. But I do understand why they were removed for the remake. It makes it a lot more accessible to people, and it fits more of gaming style today, I guess. They basically made just watching and enjoying a cutscene impossible back in 2005 because you were either on the lookout for a button prompt or you weren't paying attention and died because you missed a button prompt. But in cases like the laser wall, come on, man, you can't get rid of the laser wall. I know it's ridiculous and absurd, but you have to fit it in there somewhere. It's the fucking laser wall. I would have been perfectly fine with the return of the QuickTime event for something like that. Now that's not to say that every change they made was a bad one. In fact, most of the changes that they made were for the better. Things like adapting the Salazar statue from running at you in a cartoonish cutscene to making it more of an environmental hazard that spits fire at you as you're climbing up the clock tower. Even turning the blue medallion collectibles from the original and fleshing that out more so there's now full-blown optional bosses and side content. It brings a lot more life to the game in a campaign-focused sense instead of being like a completely different mode like Mercenaries, which didn't even launch with the game. Yeah, I know it's coming in a free update and that's cool, but not launching with Mercenaries is an L. I found myself completely ruining my runtime simply because I wanted to go shoot those medallions or kill those rats or fight that boss in the dungeon. It's a really nice way to modernize an older game to today's standards where not a lot of people want to play a completely separate mode of the game just to get a little more content. It's just another reason in the long list of reasons how the original Resident Evil 4 was ahead of its time by already having the DNA of this extra content back in 2005. This is where the fork in the road comes from though. If you lay everything out and directly compare the two versions, the original is probably better. But I think in a modern era, being exposed to people that have never experienced the game, which is a lot more people than you think, it's still a very good game through and through. The final thing I'll bring up is an area of the game I wish they had improved upon in the remake. I think the remake would have benefited greatly from having more horror elements. Obviously, you have to keep the action, as RE4 is known for that, and it is the godfather of third-person action. However, if Capcom had taken the lessons they learned from RE7 and 8 and made RE4 Remake more tense and scary, I think it would be perfect. A lot of the criticism that comes from Resident Evil 4, even back when the original came out, is the fact that it abandons its tense nature and horror inspirations in favor of being more action-oriented. And I think with this remake, if they had scaled that back a little bit and went a little more towards horror, it would have stood the test of time. I honestly think that if they had done that, you could consider the remake in the same light as the original. You can still have your action set pieces where you gun down 30 enemies, a giant troll, and maybe some dogs, but also populate the areas in between each set piece with genuine horror. Take Chapter 4 for example. When you can visit different sections of the lake, maybe you hide a really powerful gun in an area where Mendez acts similar to Mr. X and stalks you throughout the area, culminating with the end of the village section of the game with his death. A death that already happens in the game. So I was putting some final edits on the video and it just occurred to me that Mendez actually does act as a stalker-esque villain when he's chasing you and Ashley right before you blow that bridge up to separate the two of you. That's probably where I got that idea from. You could also probably pull that same thing off with Verdugo in the castle, but that might be too much. You get the point though, just a bit more horror in between the action, and I think you turn the remake into a classic. Either way though, I do believe the remake fits a special niche in today's gaming and provides a mix of horror and action that isn't common these days, enough to cement it as a modern day GOAT. Modern as in like 2012 to now. But anyway, thanks for watching, and definitely buy the game if you haven't already. It's worth every dollar. Oh, one more thing. From the deepest parts of my heart and soul, fuck every bear trap in that game.